This is ATN International News. First, the headlines. South Sudan, VP says peace talks has failed in Kenya. China, authorities wary of Russia's visit to North Korea. France, rape of Jewish girls shock citizens. From United States, Trump proposes citizenship for graduate foreign students. Australia, road rage incident kills one suspect charged. Welcome back. South Sudan's vice president said Thursday that peace talk in neighboring Kenya has failed to acknowledge the country's peace agreement. Established in 2018, alleging a new draft agreement is aimed at replacing the original peace deal. Rex Maka, in a protest letter to talk moderate, said the draft established alternative institutions to replace or run in parallel with those established by the previous peace agreements. He added that the current peace talk should complement and not obligate the original deal. The former rebel leader signed an agreement with President Salva Kiir in 2018 that ended a 5-year civil war that killed about 400,000 people. Maka and Kiir were on opposite sides in the war, and Maka was appointed vice president after the 2018 deal. His groups isn't part of the current talk, which are for groups that are not included in the 2018 agreement. Despite the peace deal, violence in South Sudan has continued, most of it attributed to rebel groups and warning ethnic groups. The body mandated with monitoring the implementation of the 2018 peace deal raised concern in May over the slow implementation of election-related tasks, with only a few months left until December elections. Opposition groups that were not part of the 2018 peace agreement have been in talks in Kenya since May 9, aimed at bringing groups on board ahead of the December election. The talks has resulted in a draft agreement that recommend an extension of the traditional period to provide more time for election preparations. President Kiir on Thursday received a progress report from government representatives in the ongoing talk, with the government spokesperson telling media that participants in the talks are close to reaching a final agreement. China appeared to be keeping its distance as Russia and North Korea move closer to each other with a new defense pact that could title the balance of power among the three authoritarian states. Experts say China leaders are likely fretting over potential loss of influence over North Korea after the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a deal week, and how that could increase stability on the Korean Peninsula, but Belgium may be struggling to come up with the response because of its conflicting goals, keeping peace in the Korean while countering the U.S. and its Western allies on the global stage. Belgium so far has not commented on the deal, which required both countries to provide defense assistance if the order is attacked, and they only reiterated Bella-Plate's statement that it states to uphold peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and advance a political statement of the non-Korean divide. The Chinese response has been very weak, said Victor Charles, Senior Vice President for Asia and Korean Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, adding that it could be a sign that Belgium doesn't yet know what to do. Every opinion is about opinion, he said. You are either unable to make a decision because of the very strong held competing view, or you are yet incapable of making a decision because you just don't know how to evaluate the situation. Some in Belgium may welcome the Russia-North Korea partnership as a way of pushing back an American dominance in world affairs, but Charles said that there is also a great deal of discomfort in China, which doesn't want to lose its sway over its neighbor to Russia, doesn't want to see a destabilizing nuclear on its doorstep, doesn't want to bring the conflict in Europe to Asia, but China isn't raising this concern publicly. They don't want to push Kim Jong-un further into the arms of Vladimir Putin, Charles said, referring to the leaders of the two countries. Lin Jiang, a spokesperson for the China Foreign Ministry, declined a comment on the new agreement. The cooperation between Russia and the DPRK is a matter to sovereign state. We do not have information on the relevant matter, he said, referring to North Korea by the initials for their official names. The Democratic Party's Republic of Korea, John Kirby, the White House national security spokesperson, told reporters that the pact between Russia and North Korea should be of concern to any country that believes that the UN Security Council resolution ought to be abided by. The Security Council has imposed sanctions on North Korea to try to stop its development of weapons. Kirby also said the agreement should be of a concern to anybody who thinks that supporting the people of Ukraine is an important thing to do, and we should think that that concern would be shared by the People's Republic of China. South Korea summoned the Russian ambassador to protest the country's new defense pact with North Korea on Friday as border tension continues to rise with vague threats and bereaved seemingly accidentally incursion by the North Korean troops. Earlier Friday, the powerful sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un issued an vague threat of retaliation after South Korean activists flew balloon carrying anti-Pyongyang propaganda leaflets left across the border. The South Korea's ministry said it has It had fired warning shots the previous day to repel North Korea soldiers who briefly crossed their rival's land border for the third time this month. That came 2 days after Moscow and Pyongyang reached a pact vowing mutual defense assistance if either it's attacked, and a day after Seoul responded by saying it would consider providing arms to Ukraine to fight Russia's invasion. South Korea Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yong-kil summoned Russian Ambassador Georgy Zingview to protest the deal between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un and called for Moscow to immediately halt its alleged military cooperation with Pyongyang. Kim, the South Korean diplomat, stressed that any cooperation that directly or indirectly helped the North build up its military capabilities would violate UN Security Council resolutions and pose a threat to the South's securities and warned of consequences for young relations with Moscow. Zengvio replied that they would convey Seoul concern to the superior in Moscow, the ministry said. Left-lifting campaign by the South Korean civilian activists in recent week have prompted a resumption of Cold War-style psychological warfare along the inter-Korean border. The South Korean civil activists, led by Korean Northern Defender Park Yang-hak, said it sent 200 balloons carrying 3,000 propaganda left-lift 5,000 USB struck with South Korean pop song and TV dramas and 3,000 US dollar bills from the South Korean border town of Daepaju on Thursday night. Pyongyang resents such materials and fears it could demoralize frontline troops and residents and eventually weaken Kim Jong-un's grips on power, analysts said. In a statement carried by North Korean officials, Korean Central News Agency, Kim Jong-un, one of her brother's top foreign policy officials, called the activist detectors scum and issued what appeared to be a threat of retaliation. When you do something you were clearly warned not to do, it's only natural that you find yourself dealing with something you didn't have to, she said, without specifying what the North would do after previous lifting by the South Korean activist. North Korea launching more than 1,000 balloons that dropped tons of trash in the South Korean, smashing roof tiles and windows and causing their property damage. Kim Jong-un previously hinted that balloons could become the North standard response to lifting, saying that the North would respond by scattering dozens of times more rubbish than is being scattered on us. South Korea said Thursday that it would consider sending arms to Ukraine, a major policy change that was suggested after Russia and North Korea rattled the region and beyond it by signing a pact to come to each other's defense in event of war. The comments from the senior presidential officials came hours after North Korean state media released the details of the agreement, which observers said could mark the strongest connection between Moscow and Pyongyang since the end of the Cold War. It comes at a time that Russia faced growing isolation over the war in Ukraine and both countries facing escalating standoff with the West. Russian President Vladimir Putin left and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un posed for the photo during a signing ceremony of the new partnership in Pyongyang, North Korea on Wednesday, June 19, 2024. According to the text of the deal published by the North Korean official Korean Central News Agency, or KCNA, if either countries get invaded and is pushed into the state of war, the other must deploy all means at its disposal without delay to provide military and other assistance. But the agreement also says that such action must be in accordance with the law of both countries and Articles 51 of the United Nations Charter, which recognize a UN member state's right to self-defense. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a pact at the summit Wednesday in Pyongyang. Both described it as a major upgrade of bilateral relations covering security, trade, investment, cultural and humanitarian ties. The office of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol issued a statement condemning the agreement, calling it a threat to its country's security and violation of UN Security Council's resolution, and warned that it would have negative consequences on Yoon's relationship with Moscow. It observed that two parties with a history of launching war of invasion, the Ukraine war and the war in Ukraine, are now vowing mutual military cooperation on the promises of the attacks by the international communities that will never happen, young officials said. At the United Nations in New York, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol called it deplorable that Russia would act in violation of the multiple UN sanctions resolution against North Korea that Moscow voted for. Yoon's national security advisor Chang Yong-jin said that Yeol would reconsider the issues of providing arms to Ukraine to help the country's fight of Russia's full-scale invasion. South Korea, a growing arms exporter with a well-equipped military backed by the United States, has provided humanitarian aid and other support to Ukraine while joining U.S.-led economic sanctions against Moscow. But it hasn't directly provided arms to Kyiv, citing a long-standing policy of not supplying weapons to countries actively engaged in conflicts. Speaking to supporters in the Yoni, where he traveled after Pyongyang, Putin said Thursday that supplying weapons to Ukraine would be a very big mistake on South Korean part. If that happened, Putin said that it would lead to decisions that are unlikely to please the current leadership of South Korea. You are watching the transition. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break. Welcome back. This is international news on Atlantic Television Network, and now the rest of our stories. The alleged rape of a 12-year-old Jewish girl is in a suspected anti-Semitic attack has sent a shockwave throughout France. And trust concerning about the anti-Semitism to the forefront of the campaigning for the country's legislative election. The Anti-Immigration National Rally Party, which has tried to shed historical links to the anti-Semitism, is leading to pre-election polling and has its face real chance of forming a government. If it comes out on top of the two-round election that ends July 7, it will be the first far-right forces to lead a French government since the Nazi occupations. Far-left fingers, meanwhile, have forced accusation of the anti-Semitism linking to their response to Hamas' October 7 attack on Israel and ensuring war. Concern came to a fore after two adolescent boys in a Paris suburb were given a preliminary charge this week of the raping a 12-year-old girl and original motivated violence, according to the prosecutors. Lawyers and jurists leading Elie Crochet told French broadcaster BFM that the girl is a Jewess and that the word Palestine was mentioned during the attack. Hundreds of people gathered Thursday evening around the Bastille monument in Paris to protest against the anti-Semitism in the second straight night of the demonstrations. France has the largest Jewish population in Europe, but given its own World War II collaboration with the Nazis, Anti-Semitism Act today open all scars. France also has the largest Muslim population in Western Europe, and anti-Muslim acts has risen in recent years. Politicians from all sides were quick to comment on the attack, notably after a surge in anti-Semitic acts in France since the start of Israeli-Hamas war. French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal wrote on X that the girl was raped because she is a Jewess, while French President Emmanuel Macron called on schools to hold a discussion hours on racism and anti-Semitism. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said Thursday that anyone involved in using inside information to beat on the date of Britain's July 4 national election should be expelled from his Conservative Party. Sunak said on a press that he was incredibly angry to learn all allegations that Conservative politicians battled on election date and that they should face the full force of the law if they were found to have broken the law. It's right that they are being investigated probably by the relevant law enforcement authorities, he said. If anyone is found to have broken the rules, not only should they face the full consequences of the law, I will make sure that they are blotted out of the Conservative Party. 2 weeks ahead of the general election, it was an uncomfortable experience for Sunak, whose Conservative Party is trailing the main opposition Labour Party by 20 points by many polls ahead of the vote. Earlier, asked about reports that the UK's Complaint Commission was investigating a second consecutive candidate for placing a bet on the timing of the election. Housing Minister Michael Gove told the press that if people use inside information to bet, it will be deeply wrong. What I can do is to sort of get so much into the details of the case while an investigation is ongoing, Gove said. But I can talk about the board principles, and you are absolutely right. It's reprehensible. Sunak announced on May 22nd that parliamentary election would be held on July 4. The date has been closely guarded secret, and many, even those in the Sunak's governing Conservative Party, were taken by surprise as the vote has been expected in the full fall. Under the United Kingdom's electoral law, the Prime Minister has the power to call the date within 5 years of the previous election. Many members of Sunak's party have said that the call is too soon, as he had until January 2025 to call the balloting. Over the course of more than a dozen years at the top of Dutch politics, Mark Rutte got to know a thing or about finding consensus among fictitious coalition partners. Now is on a track to bring the experience of leading four Dutch's anti-party government to the international stage as NATO's new Secretary General. On Thursday, Romania's president withdrew from the race for the alliance top job, leaving Rutte the only remaining candidate and all but certain to head the world's biggest military organization from October. Rutte's appointment could be sealed by the meetings of NATO ambassadors in the coming days, or even when President Joe Biden and his NATO counterpart meet for the summit in Washington on July 9 to 11. The Secretary General chair meeting and guide sometimes dedicate consultation among the 32 NATO members countries to ensure that an organization that operates on a consensus can continue to function. The NATO leader also ensured that decisions are put into action and speak on behalf of all members. Even before taking over from Jens Stoltenberg, Rutte has been put to the test. Scoring the job of NATO chief required all of NATO's Rutte's diplomatic skills as he convened doctors, including Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban and Turkish Prime Recep Tayyip Erdogan to back his candidacy. It took a very long time. It's a complicated process, but it is an honor and it appeared to have happened, Rutte told reporters in the Hague before riding his bicycle away from work. A former NATO spokesperson said Rutte was a good fit for the job. Like Stoltenberg, Rutte is a pragmatist and one of the few European politicians to have developed a good working relationship, not just with Joe Biden, but also with Donald Trump. That could prove a key asset for NATO after the November U.S. presidential election, said Ona Langescu, a former chief NATO spokesperson. Rutte is seen as a safe pair of hands to lead NATO in turbulent times, just as Stoltenberg has done for the last decade. Long circles now follow with the defense and security links think that Royal United Service Institute told press. Former President Donald Trump said in an interview posted Thursday he wants to give automatic green card for foreign students who graduate from U.S. college, a sharp departure from the anti-immigrant rhetoric he typically used on the campaign trail. Trump was asked about plans for companies to be able to import the best and brightest in the podcast tape Wednesday with venture capitalists and tech investors called the all-in. What I want to do and what I would do is you graduate from the college, think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior college too. Anybody graduates from the college, you go there for 2 years or 4 years. He said, vowing to address this concern on one day. Immigration has been Trump's signature issues during this 2024 bid to return to the White House. His suggestion that he would offer green cards, documents that confer a pathway to U.S. citizenship to potentially hundreds of thousands of foreign graduates, would represent a sweeping expansion of America's immigration system that sharply diverged from its most common messages on foreigners. Trump often said during his rallies that immigrants who are in the country illegally endanger public safety and steal jobs and government resources, and once suggested that they are poisoning the blood of our country. He has promised to carry out the largest deportation operation in U.S. history if elected. Trump and his allies often says they distinguish between people entering illegally versus legally. But during his administration, Trump also opposed curbs on legal immigration, such as family-based visas and visa lottery program. The White House announced Thursday that it will rush delivery of air defense interceptors missiles to Ukraine by redirecting plans shipments to other allies nations as Washington scrambles to counter increased Russian attack on Ukraine energy infrastructure. National Security spokesman John Kirby said the U.S. had taken the difficult but necessary decision to reprioritize near-term planned deliveries of foreign military cells to other countries, though he wouldn't say which nation would be affected or how many. Right now, we know that Ukraine urgently needs these additional capabilities, Kirby said on a call with reporters, adding that obviously more is needed and is needed now. The announcement comes after President Joe Biden, during last week's Groups of 7 meeting in Italy, suggested such action might be necessary, saying we have let it known for those countries that are expecting from us air defense system in the future that they are going to have to wait. Everything we have is going to go to Ukraine until their needs are met, Biden said, and then we will make good on the commitment we made to other countries. The U.S. was already sending Ukraine an assistance team of interceptors for its air defense system, including for the prioritized missile batteries and the National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile System, or NASAMS. But Kirby said that more was urgently needed as Russia's military has escalated missiles and drone attack against cities and infrastructural centers, trying to destroy Ukraine's energy system ahead of its winter. Russia has resumed its airtel funding of Ukraine's power grid, while key forces are against targeting Russian oil facilities with drone strikes, as each aid seeks to hinder the other abilities to continue fighting. The number of interceptors to be sent isn't clear, but Kirby said it could involve hundreds of Patriot interceptors missiles. Kirby said Ukraine will get prioritized shipments as soon as system roll of assembly lines for the next about 16 months, and those will provide the countries with enough capability during that period. After that, he said countries have been asked to delay will start to get deliveries of systems they had already ordered. Kirby said the move means a range of countries will face delay in receiving missile systems that are being diverted to Ukraine, but that the shift would not affect Taiwan or what it continue to need and receive for self-defense in the face of potential threats from China. Asked to describe how other countries reacted to the shift, Kirby said they were broadly understanding of it. They said they know how serious the need is in Ukraine, he said. A bill signed into law this week makes Louisiana the only state to require that the 10 commandments be displayed in every classroom in public schools and colleges, and stirred a long-running debate over the rules of religion in government institutions. Under the new law, all public K-12 classrooms and state-funded universities will be required to display a poster-size display of the 10 Commandments and large, easily readable font next year. Civil liberties groups plan lawsuit to block the law signed by Republican Governor Jeff Landry, saying it would unconstitutionally breach protection against government-imposed religion. We are going to be seeing Governor Landry in court, said Rasha Lassé, the president and CEO of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. State officials are stressing the history of the 10 Commandments, which the bill calls fundamental documents of our state and national governments. Similar bills require the 10 Commandments be displayed in classrooms have been proposed in other state houses, including Texas, Oklahoma, and Utah. 8 of 10 candidates in Venezuela's upcoming presidential election, including President Nicolas Maduro, on Thursday signed an agreement bidding them to respect the result of the contest as announced by electoral authorities. The agreement put forth by Venezuela's electoral body could end up being insignificant. The government has a history of testing and breaching the themes of agreement, and the document wasn't signed by Eduardo González Hutia, the only opposition candidate with the real chance of ending Abduro's quest for the third term on July 28. Now it is a document of the electoral arbiters. Whatever the electoral arbiters said, Amen Maduro's told reporters after the signing ceremony, I called on all Venezuelans to support this document sacred. The electoral bodies has long been stocked with allies of the ruling parties who function as the tools of Maduro's government, bending roles in favor of preferred candidates and blocking the participants of the opposition. Gonzalez, in a statement, said an agreement can never be imposed or unilaterally and must emerge from the respectful dialogue between the parties. He said the government has already violated an agreement it entered into with the opposition coalition he represents, including by rescinding an invitation to the European Union to send a mission of electoral observers and by increasing the persecution against leaders and supporters of our campaign. The Electoral Councils earlier this year said a presidential election for July 28 fulfilling one of the provisions of the accord to which Gonzalez referred under the agreement, which was signed in Barbados, but both sides vowed to work towards improving conditions for a free and fair election. But Maduro's and his allies has continuously tested the limits of the accord, including blocking the candidate of Maria Corina Machado, who won the presidential primaries of the U.S.-backed unilaterally platform coalition, as well as have a chosen substitute. Mexico's incoming president, Claudia Sheinbaum, an even gender distribution as well as heavy presence from academia and the apparel administration as Mexico City's mayor. Sheinbaum herself, and a climate scientist and a former academic appointee former Foreign Affairs Secretary Marcelo Ebrard as her administration's economic secretary. Ebrard stepped down from his post in 2023 to run against Sheinbaum for their party's nomination. Sheinbaum rammed to victory in a June 2nd election. Ebrard, 63, was the official president Andres Manuel López Obrador placed in charge of obtaining foreign-made vaccines for Mexico during the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also served from queuing as the second most important figure in the Morena party. His standing was tarnished by the two key events: first, a subway line that was hastily and poorly constructed while he was near collapse in 2021, killing 26 passengers. Second, he emerged in the Barranquilla primary race against Sheinbaum in 2023 for Morena's presidential nominations, but instead of conceding defeat quickly, he alleged irregularities and continued with illegal challenges. Still, the appointment of Ebrard appeared to be welcomed by investors who were spoke earlier in the month following a number of proposed judicial reform by Sheinbaum, which caused the peso to drop after Thursday's cabinet picks were announced. The Mexican currently showed a slight appreciation. Ebrard would have to tackle the renewal of the free trade agreement with the United States and Canada and increase foreign investment. Another well-received announcement, said Gabriela Saylor, director of the economic analysis of the local financial group. Guatemala President Bernardo Arevalo says opposition in the Congress and the Attorney General Office have made it difficult to implement the change he seeks for the Central American nation, which he found semi-destroyed when he took office almost 6 months ago. The politician from the Progressive Seed Movement Party was elected in August after voters angry at widespread corruption and leaders' failures to tackle it made a decisive choice for change, evaluating his long-shot candidacy. Central America's most populous country and the region's largest economy continue to struggle with the poverty and violence that have driven hundreds of thousands of egalitarians to magistrate to the U.S. What has impacted me the most is seeing how corrupt, how impacted they elected by unpopular former Guatemalterian President Alejandro Guamenti from the second four-year term ending in 2026. She has criminalized political opponents such as the Seed Movement parties, journalists, and exiled former prosecutors and judges who reported being prosecuted for having investigated acts of corruption. Proras has been sanctioned by the U.S. government and 40 other countries from hindering the anti-corruption fight and undermining the country's democracy. Arevalo said he would not remove her by force. We have a fundamental commitment to the democratic system, and we are not going to resort to non-democratic measures to rescue democracy. Arevalo said the most extreme voices have called for Arevalo to use the army or the police to opt Proras. Arevalo also holds Proras responsible for delaying investigation in different corruption cases. His government has filed over 100 complaints. Proras has denied interfering in corruption cases and refused to step down from her position. People would like to see that the corruption are being punished. The corrupts are being punished, Arevalo said. We take the first step, but it all stopped at the public ministries, whereas is no investigation of the complaint. Arevalo has made addressing Guatemalan's public infrastructure shortcoming. A priority, and said his administration has made some progress. People need to see that needs have been met and the health and education are improving, he said. His administration have revamped more than 4,000 schools and carried out public infrastructures projects in many of these areas. He said he planned to meet with outgoing Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador before he leaves office in October, and with incoming President Guaido. South Sudan, VP says peace talks have failed in Kenya. From China, authorities worry of Russia's visit to North Korea. From France, rape of Jewish girl shocked citizens. From United States, Trump proposes citizenship for graduate foreign students. From Australia, road rage incident killed one suspect charged. Thanks for watching. I am Immaculata Irikana. You can join us on all our media platforms. Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X, Atlantic TV Net. You can also watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what they blood.
I have fought a very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
people into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable
You are a human trafficker.